Good evening. This is Donna Blomquist, librarian at the LaSalle Public Library. Welcome to tonight's virtual program. Before we begin tonight's presentation and creative workshop with artist Michael Albert, just a quick reminder of two programs. Tomorrow evening, Wednesday, April 27th at 7 p.m. Central Time, the library will virtually host, as a member of Illinois Libraries Present, author Nick Offerman in conversation with musician, author, and hiking buddy, Jeff Tweedy. Together, they will discuss Offerman's new memoir, Where the Deer and the Antelope Play. Upbeat with a serious focus on nature and the outdoors, this book will be a wonderful read and a discussion tomorrow at 7 p.m. Hope you can join us for that one. And then on Tuesday, May 10th at 6 p.m. Central Time, the library will virtually host the screening of the PBS Nature documentary, My Garden of 1,000 Bees. This film is part of the library's Pollinator Pathways Plant Your Patch program, follows Martin Dorn, a veteran wildlife cameraman, on a special challenge during the pandemic lockdown to film all the bees he could find in his tiny urban garden in Bristol, England. This will run approximately 55 minutes. And then after the screening, Natalie Martin, Master Gardener, will be available to answer any of your questions about Pollinator Pathways, Plant Your Patch, and the free native wildflower seeds available at the library. And now for tonight's program, we are pleased to welcome pop artist Michael Albert as he leads a fun collage workshop. We have much to create, so let's get started. I'll stop sharing my slide and ask Michael to turn on his camera and microphone. Michael, are you there?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm going to turn over the show to you. I'm going to mute my microphone. If you should need me, I'll be right here.
Okay. Thank you, Donna. And thank you to the LaSalle Public Library. It's great to be here tonight, running a Zoom workshop. I can't see any people, but I'm imagining some of you are there. I'm an artist and an author, and I live in New York, just outside of New York City, in a city called White Plains. It's in Westchester County. And this is my book. It's called An Artist's America, and it's a artist autobiography. And I say that it's written for young people of all ages. It is generally found in the juvenile section of the library, but I don't think my art necessarily is children's art. Although since I cut and paste packages and other materials, sometimes it definitely is a project that anybody old enough to use, or able to use scissors and glue can do. So I do programs at libraries, at schools, museums, and festivals, and other special events. And sometimes they're for kids. Sometimes they're teenage programs. More and more, I've been doing adult sessions. And quite often, it's a multi-generational activity where people of all ages work together. And it's been very rewarding to have a chance to share my work and a little bit about my life and my story of how and why I started making art with different people around the country. During COVID in 2020, when all of my spring and summer programs were canceled due to the COVID pandemic, I discovered Zoom and also Facebook Live, and started interacting online a lot more. And that's been great because I've been able to do programs in all parts of the country and even some outside of the country through the computer. And I've had a lot of great experiences with different people that way, made a lot of friends and connections that way, and shared, what I love to do with many people that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And so this is really great that I could be sitting here in New York and interacting with a bunch of people in Illinois. actually this summer, I'm going to be on a tour where I'm going to be doing in-person programs in over 100 libraries and museums and art centers in the Midwest. And I will be in Illinois for about 10 different programs. I'll be in Iowa, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Wyoming, Montana, Nebraska, and Michigan for about 2 months, just traveling around the area and doing programs. And then I'm hoping to one day be able to come to LaSalle, Illinois in person and see what it's like, and meet Donna in person, and maybe some of you. So what I've been doing for this program generally is I start out with a short introduction, telling people about myself and why I started making art. I use my book to show some images for suggested project ideas, such as this, which was my first collage I ever made using a cereal box. Very simple idea. But I think I'll start out by just explaining why I started making art, and then I'll kind of lead you into, some of the project ideas you might consider. But I guess the first thing I would want to make sure is that you have some materials to do this project. And so, the things that you'll need to do this, one of the things is a pair of scissors. I guess if you don't have scissors and you like tearing things, that's fine too. I personally use scissors. Some people use X-Acto knives, and I've worked with people that tear and shred things. There's no set rules with art. That's one of the things that I always loved about art. It was one of those things for me that you can kind of make up your own rules, and there's no real wrong way to do it. So, but scissors might be a good idea. Glue. Regular Elmer's glue will work. Clear glue, tacky glue, even a glue stick will work. A glue stick works well with magazine, print, and newspapers and stuff. But with the cardboard pieces, it can work. It's not ideal. I mean, the liquid glue is better. I use this glue this is my glue bottle, actually. It's been very used, and it's got this glue blob formed on it because I've worked with it for years. And as my fingers get gluey as I work, I keep grabbing it, and this thing seems to form on it. But it's a glue called Lineco, Lineco, and it's an acid-free neutral pH adhesive. It's really a white glue that dries clear, just like Elmer's. It's just a little thinner, and it's acid-free, so supposedly it won't turn yellow or deteriorate over time. I do have collages I made over 20 years ago using Elmer's type glue or the clear type glue that you can get, and I haven't seen any deterioration yet, so I don't think that's a huge problem. The other thing you'll probably need is a piece of cardboard to use as the base for your collage. And one thing you can use is the back of a writing pad. You have a writing pad, and sometimes I put stickers on mine, but the back of a writing pad is a very nice piece of cardboard. It's 8.5 by 11. And, when you use the last piece of paper, you can use the back of these. You can take a corrugated box, the kind of box you might get something shipped to you from Amazon, or, just a regular kind of brown cardboard shipping box, and cut that into pieces, and that's usable as well. And I also use boards that I get from a frame shop that I work with, and they usually use acid-free museum boards or mat boards to make their mats and to mount things. And as they work, generally they work from large sheets, and there's always parts of those boards that are scrap. So I have a few frame shops I work with, and they save their scrap for me because they know me and they know I'm going to put it to good use. And they also prefer having their, the byproduct of their business being used rather than just thrown into the recycling bin. And it's perfectly cut, acid-free board. This is a collage I just made the other day for a library I visited in Virginia. And so I signed it on the back and I made a collage on there. But you could see it's a perfectly cut, I don't know what size this is, maybe 6 or 7 by 9 or 10 kind of size. But so getting yourself a base would be good. You could also use a piece of cardstock paper, like a little thicker paper. But I think the cardboard is best for this type of project. So those are 3 things that you would need. And then finally, you could either use packages of things like cereal boxes, cookies, crackers, anything that comes in a cardboard box. I like printed cardboard boxes with, color and letters and pictures and little logos and all sorts of, when you look closely at these packages, there's all sorts of markings on there that are interesting, logos, pictures of things. So cookies, crackers, soda cartons, frozen pizza, toothpaste boxes. My criteria is that it's not dirty or crushed. It doesn't have food on it. Doesn't have, I don't like chocolate donut boxes that have chocolate stuck to it. I have been known to use raisin boxes, even though they kind of get raisin residue on there, but I love the little sun-made raisin lady, and I put her on my work sometimes, and sometimes there's a little bit of that raisin residue left on there, so I try to scrape it off. But generally, as long as it's not crushed or dirty, it's usable. And you don't have to have printed colorful packages either. You could just use pieces of any kind of printed or not printed cardboard or paper to make a collage. There's no rules. I think some of the first collages were made with pieces of newsprint or wallpaper combined with drawings, like in the case of Picasso or Braque. But my images generally are what I consider a pure collage, which is the whole image made from pieces cut from assorted materials to make your image. I very rarely, if I've made thousands of collages, I've made maybe a handful where I combined drawing with the collaging. And I would refer to that as a mixed media work. And there's no saying that you can't do that if that's what you'd like to do. Sometimes I do sketch out shapes and stuff and collage it, but generally the drawing or the hand done part of it is not part of the collage. I usually cover that, or use that as a as a basis for what I'm collaging. But again, if you want to combine drawing or painting and collaging, you can. Also, when I do my workshops at some of these venues and I give my talk in the beginning, like I'm doing now, I generally don't, it's hard to concentrate on talking when other people are already working. But since you're at home and, I can't see you or hear you at the moment, there's no reason you can't start. But in addition to the cardboard packages that I just showed you, you can also use old photographs, stickers, junk mail, labels, any kind of printed material that you might have collected that you might want to use in an art project. I well, let me just quickly say that I'm not formally trained. Okay, I think that you can learn about art and you can watch other people make art and actually learn a lot about what other people do. But I think only by actually making art can you really learn for yourself how to make art. You know, it's not the kind of thing that you could learn by just watching other people do it. So I was a business student at NYU and I never really thought of studying art formally, but I did start becoming interested in different subjects that had nothing to do with my studies, had nothing to do with business. I started reading books that had nothing to do with business. I started listening to music, all different types of music, and learning about my favorite types of music and performers and bands and stuff. And then I started going to museums. And living in New York City, I went to NYU. I started going to some of the New York City museums, which are some of the great museums of the world. You've got some of the great museums of the world in Illinois. Chicago's got, you know, the Art Institute. And I know there's lots of great museums all around the state. But I started going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Whitney Museum, and the Museum of Modern Art, I guess were the three main ones that I would go to. And I just started, you know, when I was finished with my classes and my studies and I had a little bit of free time, I started wanting to learn other things besides business. And walking around these museums really inspired me to want to create my own art. Particularly the art of Vincent van Gogh. I just loved his paintings and drawings and started learning about his story. You know, I learned that he wasn't formally trained and that actually he didn't even start making art until he was 27 years old. And he only lived until he was 37. So as an untrained person that didn't even start making art till he was in his late 20s, and then only made art for a decade, to have become one of the greatest artists that ever lived, which I think he is. And as you know, many people know, he wasn't able to sell his work and he didn't get critical acclaim. So, you know, I think he made close to 1,000 drawings and 1,000 paintings over those 10 years. And I mean, one thing I always thought was amazing was, you know, without any positive reinforcement through sales or critical acclaim, that he just kept going. He kept, you know, you know, he just kept pursuing his dream of creating masterpieces. And I think there's no question that he succeeded. But when I realized in college that, okay, here was someone who was untrained and started later in life, you know, why can't I experiment with art? Maybe if I work really hard, I could come up with something interesting and who knows, maybe even great. And that's what I'm still working towards now. In the beginning, I used to draw, and some of my drawings I had this set of wax oil crayons and started doing, I guess my work's always been colorful, and I guess I'm not a minimalist. So like, here's a drawing of faces that I did. This one here is what I consider my first serious artwork. If you look closely at it, it's a picture of me. These are my legs and these are my hands. It's a picture of me on my bed in college, drawing all the things that were in my dorm room. And it's like a self-portrait, but instead of it being a portrait of my face, like a traditional self-portrait. It's my legs and hands and my stuff. And the original of this was done on a piece of oak tag that was maybe, I think it was like 25 by 30 inches. And it took me over a month to make it. And I had never worked on any project for a month. You know, I became obsessed with this idea of creating some sort of a great artwork. And so I would finish my studies and do my homework and go back to my room and start working on my drawing. And I would take things out of the cabinet and draw them into the picture. And little by little, I filled in the entire oak tag and created this drawing. And I called it The Victim. The title of it was The Victim, because I looked at it and I saw all these different brands and I just thought, wow, I'm the victim of advertising. I must be. Why do I have all these different brands in my apartment, you know? But in any case, I really enjoyed that process, and I enjoyed working so hard on one project. You know, I think I put more than 100 hours of work into that, and it was very rewarding. And that I just kept going. You know, I think if I didn't love to make art and it wasn't enjoyable, relaxing, you know, if I didn't feel like I was being a productive human being while doing it, I think maybe I would have looked for something else to spend, you know, a lot of my time doing. But art really delivered in that way. You know, I still think that that when you make art, you're kind of like playing a game that you make up, but it's serious. And I feel like I'm being productive when I create things. So, and I'm still keeping my dream alive of, you know, attempting to see if I could create something that might truly be considered great art that could one day be in the Art Institute of Chicago and other museums around the country and world. Who knows? In any case, so I spent a number of years drawing before I ever collaged anything. I did need to get a job when I got out of school, and I ended up getting into the food business and becoming a food salesman. And after a few years of hawking other companies' products and realizing that a lot of my efforts were going into helping brand build for other brands, other companies. And then as soon as they started to do well, they would go and sell to every distributor in town, or they'd sell to a big distributor, a big sales organization, and say, you know what, you're localized to the New York market, but these people do all of New England or all of the Northeast, and we're going to sell them now too. And, you know, you can still sell it, but now, you know, you'll have to compete against them. And that was, you know, I don't know if it was frustrating because, you know, I was putting all my effort into building these little brands by getting them into as many stores as I could and nurturing them, you know, but in the end, I had this idea to create my own brand, and I used my art to do so. And I came up with this idea for a brand called Surreal. And I started with juices, and for each flavor, I created a character, such as here's the apple man that I had on bottles of apple juice. And here's the lemon man that I had on bottles of lemonade. And at one point I had some delicious fresh tangerine juice in Florida, and this was the tangerine man. And I still do this. I sold juices for many years, and then after a while I came up with some grocery shelf items, like this is my applesauce. You could see my artwork on the label, and you could see the brand is called Surreal. And I still spend some of my time doing this. And one of my plans for that is to partner with a big company who sees the value in the brand, thinks it's a great brand, and that they could really help build it and take it national, international, something like that. But have it so that somehow the brand supports the arts. I want to sponsor the arts, similar to the way Newman's products sponsor charities. And if I could accomplish that, I think that would be amazing. But I still think it would be more amazing to create a masterpiece that could be in the Metropolitan Museum of Art or one of these major art museums of the world. For me, art is something a little bit beyond the everyday, beyond the idea of money, beyond the idea of business. It's more of like humans expressing their thinking and what's going on in the world for the future, so that future generations can look back and look at our art and try to figure out what was going on here at this time. And to me, that's a romantic vision of of art, and I guess part of the reason why I spend a lot of my time making art and trying to come up with something good and interesting. But anyway, now I'm going to tell you more about the collages. As I said, you could maybe you're all making art right now as we speak. I hope so. Let me see if there's any questions. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. It doesn't look like it. But if you have any questions, feel free to type them and I'll see it and I'll try to answer it. Well, so eventually I started making collages, after years of drawing, after years of being in the food business, being a salesman. I had started a company with first my friends, and then I worked with my brother. And I started realizing that there was a lot of materials, both at my office, through my business and at home, that I just didn't seem like they were garbage, but it did seem like I didn't really have any use for them anymore. Whether they were old labels because the company I was working with had changed their design, or sell sheets, maybe for products that either changed their packaging or I stopped working with. And then things like junk mail and just the byproduct of work and living. There seemed to be a lot of printed materials that, to get them out of our way, we hopefully get them into the recycling bin as quickly as possible. But, some people aren't that organized and they have a lot of collected materials. Oh, maybe I'll use that one day, right? That there might be some use for that in some way. And some people hoard things, but maybe I kind of tend towards that. But I always thought to myself, well, if I use it in art, then it's functional. Then I'm not a crazy hoarder, And in any case, I also found that I was spending a lot of my time in my business making phone calls, calling customers and seeing if they needed anything, this week or next week when I was going to be in the area delivering. And I could call a customer and I could, call them up and say, hey, is Joe in, the guy that I would deal with? And they'd say, oh yeah, hold on a second, I'll go find him. And 5 minutes passes and Joe gets on the phone. Oh, hey, Michael, how you doing? Great, great. Yeah, just checking in. Do you need anything? I'm going to be in the area next week. Hold on a second, I'll go check. 5 minutes more passes, gets back on the phone. Yeah, give me a case. Give me 2 cases. Thanks. See you then. So you could be on the phone for 10 or 15 minutes, for really, people weren't emailing in their orders. Actually, even today, everybody's so busy, you got to call and remind them. And there's so much email that comes through people's computers that, it's hard to get noticed. And especially if you're a new fledgling brand, that's not the top of their priority list. So while I was on hold at my office, what I started doing was making collages out of stickers and junk mail from things I had been collecting while working. And here's an example of one of my sticker collages. I don't know if you could see it, there's a little bit of a glare, but some of them were little pieces of labels. Some of them were, little stickers that came. Here's something from Visa. This is from over here is this part of a stamp page I can see. And just all these little miscellaneous things that I had been collecting. And then I would stick them onto these pieces of cardboard and make these collages. So if you have any stickers or miscellaneous stuff, stickers that you have, labels, a lot of times you get mailings now where they send you stickers. And here's a good example. I had a Hot Wheels stamp page and I used every stamp, but there's still a bunch of sticker left. I can peel this off this wax paper backing and use it, especially this cool Hot Wheels logo. So, I might end up pasting those onto the back of a writing pad, or actually I realized that this pad I'm still using, there's still pages left, but at some point I took some of these stickers that you get in the mail, like with your name and address on it, and I kind of collaged the whole inside of the back of this cardboard. That's a pretty cool piece. Trying to see if I even signed it. Yeah, I did this on October 20th, on October 8th, 2020. So, if you have stickers and stuff like that, you can use those. The next thing I started using was photographs. A lot of my first photo collages were made from pictures of my family, bad pictures, duplicate pictures, because I used to take a lot of film photos, especially when my kids were young. And like anybody who's old enough to remember film photographs, you didn't get to see your pictures until you picked them up at the store. And then usually half of them were bad. And that's if you were a good photographer. And then they had that special deal where you could get 2 copies of each picture for about the same as the price of one, maybe a little bit more. And so then you'd get duplicates of all your bad photos. And so I started realizing this, and and we never throw out our bad photographs either. We keep them in envelopes and boxes and never look at them. And then I think one day hopefully in the long future, somebody else is going to throw them in the trash if they don't have the same sentimental attachment to them. So I started cutting them up and making these family montages. And then I realized I can take pictures of a person, like one person, cut it all up and mix up the pieces and make a portrait of that person. This is actually a photo collage of the music group The Grateful Dead in concert that a friend of mine took. And he took these pictures when he was 16. I'm trying to get it so you don't see the glare. He took these pictures when he was 16, and then he lost his camera for 30 years. When his parents sold their house and moved, he found his old camera and it still had film in it. And there were these pictures from this concert he had attended when he was 16. So he printed up some extra copies. And yeah, there's the band in concert in 1977. I cut out pieces of the black mostly to spell out one of their lyrics from their song Dark Star. Any of you know these guys. And made this kind of cool Grateful Dead inspired collage. But like I said, my earliest collages were just pictures of my family. And you can actually take a bunch of bad pictures of your family or friends or coworkers and make a really cool montage that's almost like becomes like an heirloom, a memory. I remember for my brother's wedding, I had taken a bunch of the proofs, a bunch of the extra photos that, they didn't need after they picked the good ones for their albums and the ones they wanted to send to people, and made him a montage of his wedding in the shape of a heart with little bits and pieces of photographs from his whole wedding, from the beginning to the end. And those were pictures that would just be stuck in an envelope and never looked at again. But he now has had that framed in his living room for many years, and it's an heirloom. So that's another idea, you know. A lot of us people that remember photographs prior to the digital age, you know, now kids they know that if you take, first of all, they take thousands of pictures and they never print any of them. They post them on social media. But if you're very organized in your digital life, you know, maybe you look at them and delete the bad ones at least. But you know, the age of film, it's actually, people still do take film photographs, but they're, you know, they're old school, like me. You know, I say that I'm a scissors and glue type of guy. You know, some people look at my work because it's so detailed and I guess it's very graphic, and they think that it's made in a computer, you know, by computer. And I explain, no, my collages are all made from actual materials. I never print out images from the computer and use them in my work. Very, very rarely. Hardly ever. You know, I like the idea of saving things from our everyday life from the landfill and giving them, you know, immortality in art. So doing the photo collages of the family resulted one day in me deciding to cut up an image that was well known, that wasn't so personal. And this was made from a postcard of the Empire State Building. And it's a very simple idea. Just took a postcard 4 by 6 inches of the Empire State Building, cut it up, and glued the pieces down onto a piece of board about the same size, 4 by 6, and created this. And I just thought, that looks cool. That's like looking at the Empire State through a kaleidoscope, you know, or through a cracked mirror or something. It's sort of taken apart and put back together in a slightly different way, and it just kind of, it's moving, and I loved it. And so that idea is what led me to creating my first collage using a cereal box, which was this. And it's really the same idea as that, but instead of it being a photograph, it's a iconic consumer brand package. You know, the cover of a Frosted Flakes box, which it's something that whether you eat it or not, whether you like it or not, if you live in America and you go to grocery stores and supermarkets and watch TV or look at magazines, you know what this is. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. This is, you know, first of all, there's a huge social issue with the amount of garbage we create through our consumer culture. You know, you have a box of cereal that maybe has 8 to 10 bowls of cereal, which, you know, as some of you probably know, teenagers could finish in like 2 sittings. Some of them could probably finish it in 1 sitting. And then you have this beautiful printed box, and what happens to it, you know, and what happens when 100 million cereal boxes a day or week are consumed. You know, that's quite a lot of cardboard and ink that either is going to end up in the landfill, or if it's recycled, it still takes a lot of energy to cart it away and sort it and do whatever it is that has to be done to have it be given another life, you know. Oh, this is my wife, Erin.
Hi.
She's bringing me a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
Goodbye.
I don't know. Something like printed thing.
Okay. So, so in any case, this was very important to me because I had never made art out of an everyday object like this. And after I did that, I became really obsessed with this idea. I really didn't know much about Andy Warhol at the time, and his pop art and I mean, I guess I knew about the Campbell soup cans and stuff, but I wasn't really into it that much. Never really learned too much about it. But I guess when I found out about it, or when people started looking at my cereal box collages and saying, "Oh, that's pop art. That's like an Andy Warhol soup can." I agree. It's a artist's portrait of an iconic consumer brand, and so I started doing all sorts of other brands in the same way, where I would cut them apart and put them back together. Here's a Cheerio box. I mean, the classic yellow Cheerio box. I've really cut it up into hundreds of little pieces and then glued them down in a mixed up way. I did many versions of certain brands, and this is an idea that you can do an infinite amount of times. I could do 1,000,000 Cheerio boxes and everyone will be unique. And I think beautiful, this is called the boardwalk effect, where I cut the box into a strip and then I cut the strip into slivers until the entire cover of the box was a pile of these little slivers. And then I glued them down very carefully, and it kind of looks like a wood floor or a boardwalk to me. So that's why I call it the boardwalk effect. And started doing every cereal I could find. Here's a Captain Crunch berries and Tricks. Then I started using boxes that weren't just cereal, like Cracker Jacks. And this was done with square shaped pieces. You can cut your box into a straight strip, and then cut the strip into even square shaped pieces. And then you'll see no matter which way you turn them, they fit together very nicely. And here's another. I did an homage to Warhol, the Campbell soup label. So you can see in the middle there that I have my initials MA. That's one of the, and even down here, there's another set of my initials, MA, Michael Albert. That's something I started putting in all my collages. Here, let's see where it is on here. Oh, here, down over here, there's another MA. Can you see it? Over there. So that's one thing that I started doing in all of my collages, was putting my initials MA. And that's something that I think was inspired originally by the New York Times cartoonist Al Hirschfeld, who would write his daughter's name Nina in his works. If you've ever seen or heard of that, his name is Al Hirschfeld, Hirschfeld, and he was known as the Line King, because his fine black line drawings of all these famous people were very well known, I think, in the 70s, for the most part, 70s and 80s. He's since died, but he would write his daughter's name, Nina, in the work, like in the hair or in the pattern of the clothing. And next to his signature, he would have a number, let's say the number 3. That would mean that there are 3 Ninas in that drawing, and people would look at them and try to find them. And it was kind of made it more of an interactive thing, and people were always happy to find them. And it's always so cool how he hid them. So I started doing that in my own way, with my initials, MA. So you could put your initials in your work if you want. You don't have to, of course, but something to think about, or some other signature kind of thing that you might come up with for yourself that has some sort of a meaning for you. I think a lot of artists have things that they come up with that they include in their artworks, whether they're paintings, collages, sculptures, whatever, that become these signature things, So anyway, that's the first idea of what you might want to do with these packages is just pick a brand, maybe your favorite brand or something. And the beauty of this Zoom workshop is that if it's your favorite thing that you love to eat, you probably have a box of it at home, you know, or you probably won't mind buying one if it's really something you like. And just cut it up any way you like, and put it back together any way you like, and see how that turns out. Now I have another group of ideas that I've come up with using these various materials. And the second one is what I call color-based ideas. And I guess here would be an example. This is an American flag. And with this, I used red pieces from a Coca-Cola carton and blue pieces from an Oreo cookie box, and tried to create my own artistic version of the flag. And this, I think, is kind of interesting because even though there's no stars or stripes, you still can kind of tell that it's an American flag. To me, this is almost like, Matisse-esque, Matisse cutouts / pop art, and the fact that the red is the Coca-Cola red and the blue is the Oreo cookie blue is interesting to me. Here's another flag. This one does have stripes, but doesn't really have stars. And this was made out of a insert from a pair of Tommy Hilfiger boxer shorts. Sometimes I happen to have my little bag here. And sometimes I make very little collages. I'm going to show you towards the end some of the bigger things I've done. But like I do these little collages, like this is a little flag. See how small it is? It's a tiny little American flag, and it's signed on the back and dated, just like any of my serious artworks. Just because it's little doesn't mean it's any less serious. I could show you this one. This might be the smallest flag I've ever made. Let's go like that. And actually, one of my other dreams is to have the smallest collage in the Museum of Modern Art. Maybe this will be it. See what else I've got. Here's another little one. Little baby. Even put a little heart in the center of the blue part. See what it's called. It's just dated May 2020 and signed Michael Albert. Look how small this one is. I could put it on the tip of my nose. So the flags is one theme, but it's an example of how using the color from the packages. Another idea could be like a rainbow. You could find an assortment of images of different colors and kind of put them together the way that a spectrum goes. You can see the blue blends into the green, into the yellow, then orange, red, and purple. And it's kind of beautiful. And it's made up of all this little miscellaneous images from different things. Here's my MA right there, my initials. So the rainbow is another, what I call a color-based idea. The heart is another. With the heart, I found a whole bunch of red images and formed them into the shape of a heart. And I thought it was interesting because, the images were all, the only thing they really had in common was that they were red, but they came from all different sources. And sort of bringing together these unrelated images just because they're all the same color is kind of cool. Plus, you then realize what things on packages are red. I mean, you're generally not going to see a strawberry that's anything but red. Elmo, you're never going to see Elmo that's, any other color but red. And Clifford the Big Red Dog, I mean, it would be weird if you ever saw Clifford as any other color but red. Interesting. Never going to really see a tomato depicted on a product that's not red, unless it's fried green tomatoes. But I think they're always red that I've seen. So like up here in the corner is I forget what the brand name is, but it's like an Italian woman holding tomatoes. So you can do a heart. Another thing that I started doing that I would say is a color-based idea. Let me just see if I have it with me. Oh, it's something that I call a brandscape. You know, a landscape is a nature scene. And so I started doing what I call brandscapes since I use brand packages. These are sunflowers made from brand packages. I took green to make stems and grass at the bottom. Sometimes I make leaves. I cut brown circles to be the center of the sunflower, and red, yellow petals, you know, the way that they are on sunflowers, and assortment of blues for the sky. My initials MA are down there. I've put the little bee from Honey Grams. Looks like he's buzzing through the garden. And I like to leave text on my work just so that you could see where these materials I used came from. You know, it's not just colored paper. But, you know, I guess back to Andy Warhol, if you've ever seen Andy Warhol's flowers, they don't look realistic. You know, they're an artistic rendering of the flower, and mine are too, but in my way. Another one that I have here is a little forest. So I cut these shapes of the tree trunks and branches out of brown, you know, generally brown things. Speaking of, you know, what color things generally are, I mean, you generally have chocolate bars have brown on them, you know, so these are like from chocolate. Then I cut green for leaves. I cut out some clouds from the nutrition panel so you could still see some of the numbers and stuff from the nutrition information. Up here is the sun that came from the Jones pork sausages. You know that product? And I very often have been putting the Nabisco logo in the corner of my collages. Let me see, where's the M? Oh, the MA is down at the bottom here. Can you see? Down there. So you can recreate flowers, trees, some sort of a nature scene, the beach, mountains, fields, anything you choose. You know, you find the colors with the packages that you have and use them in any way you wish. You know, sometimes I do abstract. Now I gotta pull some stuff off my shelves. Actually, oh, here's a collage my daughter made. It's a little bit more different style than mine, you could see. But again, she used colors to kind of create her picture. Here's a star. There's some images that are recognizable, those tomatoes and this little nature scene that come from some brand. But otherwise, it's all just shapes that she cut out of different colored packages. So that's another idea. And I guess the last idea that I'm going to show you, or maybe the second to last, is what I would call text-based works. You know, I had started spelling things out with all the letters that are found on packages. And I have these bookmarks that I've printed that are good examples. This is one. This is my gratitude bookmark. But you could see I cut the letters from all different packages and spelled out gratitude. There's even a little American flag in the corner there, and my initials down at the bottom. Here's one. Reading is fun. What else do I have? One that says God bless. I did a whole tour of Delaware libraries last summer, and so I created a Delaware artwork, and the Delaware Division of Libraries printed these out. And they were the first state. That's why it says first down below. And see, they branded the card. It was also sponsored by the Delaware Division of the Arts. So, but I had made this where I cut the letters to spell greetings from Delaware out of an assortment of different packages. So you could spell anything out you like. I started doing lyrics of songs I like. This is from the Beatles. I am the walrus. I am he, as you are he, as you are me, and we are all together. You know, such a classic John Lennon lyric. And you could, I mean, here's one that I did. Well, like I was showing you how I made collages for different places I visit. I was in Virginia the last week for a few days, and I visited a couple of branches of the Arlington Public Library. So I made them this. So this is a combination of spelling out Arlington Public Library in Virginia. Down over here is my initials. Here's like a little flag. And then I cut all sorts of little miscellaneous things. I put my own character here, the Orange Man, and, you know, put a bunch of other images. Put your Quaker Oats guy over here. I think he's from Illinois, isn't he? And just a fun collection of iconic imagery from consumer brands. And I'll have to make one for the LaSalle Library when I come there. I'm going to continue, but I see there's a couple of comments. Is Sister Corita an influence? I do not know who Sister Corita is. So I will look that up. Is she an artist? I'll check into that. And Penny, I'm so glad you found this. Thank you so much for joining. Are some of you making some art? Are we gonna, is Donna there listening? I'm amazed that I can just talk to myself like this, but I guess I'm not surprised, come to think of it.
Yeah, I'm here, and you're really not talking to yourself. You're talking to all of us. So,
Okay.
and we're enjoying all of it. I have a whole list of notes here for myself, starting with your Grateful Dead collage, which is just outstanding. And I can just see my husband would be just thrilled to have that.
I'm going to send you one.
Oh, you actually have copies of that?
Of course.
Well, wonderful. Exactly. Wonderful. You know,
yeah.
Well, since we have interrupted your flow there, I want to, I have a couple of things for you while we're talking here. Michael, since you do have some in-person visits in the Midwest, and I assume some virtual ones too, may I share your contact information so that our audience might be able to find you again?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
If you're in Central and North Illinois, I know I'm going to be, are you anywhere near Taylorville?
We're north of Taylorville. It's a couple, maybe 2.5 hours from here.
I'll be there. I'm going to be in Roanoke, Illinois.
That I don't know.
Pekin?
Pekin is an hour away.
I'll be in Pekin for a double program on June 2nd. An afternoon and an early evening. I'll be in Dunlop and Brimfield.
Okay, so they are just in the Peoria area. Not too far from here, about an hour or so.
I'll be in Forsyth.
I don't know Forsyth. I should though. That
I
sounds
think it's
familiar.
right next to Decatur.
Next to Decatur. Okay, so that's a little bit farther south, but you just never know.
Well, and that's the beginning of the trip in June, but then at the end, I finish my trip back in Illinois when I'm gonna be in Rantoul.
Okay, Rantoul is down from us. It's south. But are all these in person or are they virtual?
All in person.
All in person. Okay.
The Lincoln Library in Springfield.
Okay, so Springfield's a couple of hours.
I'll be at the Tri-City Library in Buffalo, Illinois.
Don't know that one.
I'll be at the Peoria Playhouse.
Okay, so that's, like I said, about an hour.
That's a
I
children's
get mixed up
museum.
because I'm closer to Peoria than the library is. So sometimes I get myself confused where I am at the moment.
Well, they have a children's museum. I'm gonna spend a Sunday there all day. If anybody
Okay.
has kids or grandkids they want to bring. Schaumburg, I guess that's north.
Northwestern suburb. So from here, a bit of a drive, but not terrible. No worse than Peoria.
I have a double program there Tuesday, August 2nd. And then Elkhart, I think, is further south.
I'm not sure Elkhart, Illinois.
I think that
yeah.
might be closer to you. That's a small town, but I think it's 2 or 3 hours south of
Okay, well,
Schaumburg.
I will keep the contact information so that I can share it with the group. I see we're getting some comments in the chat.
Okay.
Also, just in terms of technique, I see that many of your collages have space in between the pieces, while others, like your boardwalk technique, are pieces butted up to each other. Is it just personal expression and how you best see the finished piece? I mean, is there a rule of thumb when you're supposed to allow space and not allow space?
No. I mean, that's always up to the artist. I mean, I try not to leave too much space,
Okay.
but also I don't, some are a little bit more closer to each other. Also, I don't always work on white backgrounds. So sometimes if it's on a colored background, that adds to it. I have some, like here's one I could show you. I do these skulls. I cut this skull shape out. And I did a quote from Hamlet, when he looks at, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him,
Yes.
Horatio. So this was on a light blue background, you could see, rather than
Yes.
the space between being white. And it's, there's even a lot of blue on blue that I did.
I see that. It's very interesting, very colorful. I love it.
And you can see there's the Danish flag and the Norwegian flag.
I do see them.
Yeah, and up here I decided to give William Shakespeare credit with his initials and then my
I see
initials
that and
down
yours.
below.
Yes.
you
Very
know?
clever. There is so much creativity in this beyond the composition itself, the background for it. I just love that. I have one other technical question, and then I want to turn to what's coming up in the chat. My other technical question is, because you use packaging that often has quite a thickness to it, like cereal boxes, like Tony the Tiger, I assume you don't overlap pieces because it would be too thick.
I don't overlap pieces, but it is not thick cardboard. It's thin. I personally like that mosaic idea, the idea of pieces next to each other rather than on top of each other.
Yes.
But I would not tell anybody else that they couldn't do that. It isn't too bad if you do that. It doesn't make it too thick.
Okay.
It's thin cardboard. It's not like a corrugated, it's a thin,
Sure.
It's the thinnest cardboard that you could use. And I really don't like tears or creases, or if it's on a color, I don't like it being scratched. So on occasion, I have to wear my glasses now for close-up seeing. And sometimes it gets away from me, and there's a piece that I realize after I'm done with it is scratched or creased. Also, one of the things I like about this material, as opposed to photographs or newsprint, is that if you get a little, you're going to get a little bit, unless you're so careful, you know, you're going to get a little bit of glue on the pieces on the top. But because of the nature of the boxes, they're coated. You know, they're coated, I guess, for distribution and for use. You could moisten your finger and then kind of roll off whatever little bit of glue is on there. And as long as you do it pretty soon afterwards, it ends up being perfect. And little pieces of glue, you know, you kind of brush them off the board, and then every piece is as bright and perfect as it was when you cut it off the box, you know. But there are occasions where maybe I do it a little too rough, or maybe it was on there a little too long and it kind of like scuffs the color. And if it bothers me enough, I will glue something on top of it. Or if I spell things wrong, on occasion I've realized I've spelled things wrong. So if I spell things wrong and I realize it, I cover them up and fix it, you know. But
Well, that
generally,
certainly makes it one of a kind.
yeah, right. I otherwise don't do that. And yeah, but those are great questions.
I see that Laura said about Sister Carita, you will love her mostly printmaking, but use logos such as General Mills.
Oh,
It made me think of her. Do you see Laura's comment there?
yes, I see it. I'll look up Sister Carita when we finish this.
Okay.
If something comes up, I'd love to see that. Interesting.
And I think Laura has a question. Will you be in southern Wisconsin?
You know what? I have several days in Wisconsin. I'm gonna be in Sheboygan. Is that southern? It's on the water, but I think it's pretty southern. Maybe Wisconsin's a big state, so it's in the southern half. It's a little bit above Milwaukee, but I'm going to be there for 2 days. I'm also going to be in Manitowoc, which is just above there, and in Plymouth, which is just west of there. I'm going to be there in June from the 15th to the 18th.
I think that's too far north. I have a feeling that might be farther north.
Well,
but
yeah, I'm also going to be in Michigan, but that might be over a little bit. I'm going to
well,
be
we may have to have our audience find you on virtual programs, but nonetheless,
yeah, you know what?
they will
If you just
find
go
you.
to michaelalbert.com, my entire schedule is on my homepage, so you'll be able to see. And you know, hopefully one of those will be convenient. Some people have taken road trips to come to this because it is kind of special.
It is.
LS, some of the Illinois locations will maybe work for you. Great. I'm also going to DeKalb. DeKalb, is it called?
Illinois?
Yep.
Oh, well, that's here.
That's near you?
nearby. That's
Oh.
nearby.
I'll be in DeKalb on Friday, August 5th. Yep. And Waukegan, that's north.
That's right by the Wisconsin border and the lake.
Oh, so whoever was asking about southern Wisconsin, that's pretty close.
Mhm.
That's going to be on the 4th of August. That's the end of my trip, that first week of August, and then I go back home.
Well, we will make sure that people can find you, Michael. This is terrific. And I love all the different techniques and the creativity that goes into each one before you even open your glue bottle. I'm struck by that. And every time I watch you and I get an idea of something you've done and how I would like to go with that, then you show me another idea and then I want to go with that. I love the family photos. I'm one of those people who has boxes and not organized of really bad photos from the Walgreens or the, Osco or something like that. And, what to do with them. And I think I finally found an outlet. Now all I have to do is find the time.
That's the thing.
But that is quite a unique way of coming up with a gift for a special person. That would be great. I thought of somebody who's a dear friend since we were 3 years old, and I can imagine that I have tons of really crummy pictures of her, and I would like to put this together.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be super careful with your photos, but you could certainly turn, like I said, bad, blurry, even blurry pictures of somebody as in the background is interesting, I mean, maybe not as the focal point of it, but
Sure.
rather than just a piece of color, if you have like an image of them blurry in the background, it's just so cool to like see those. Put
I
them
was
together.
thinking of, when some of the photos actually are so old, they start to turn kind of a yellowy kind of
Mhm.
thing. Even that has its own quality to it. And do you remember when you would get those snapshots and they would have dates on them? Wouldn't that be fun? So
Yes.
including the date in the corner that has, somebody's ear, I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that, you know what, that just reminded me that because some people want to know, how do you protect your pieces, or do you coat them? Like, because some people might say, well, should I do Mod Podge over it or spray it with the adhesive stuff or the UV coating that sometimes artists spray on top of mixed media works, let's say. But I don't do that. I don't. I'm not sure what would happen. Maybe I should experiment with that. But what I do is I either keep my originals in books. I'll show you. I have these 3 ring binders that I keep originals in. As long as they're small, 8.5 by 11 or smaller. I should tilt this down, or I'll just hold it up. I'll take some out. As well, I keep them flat, and here's a little Campbell's soup label. This was made on February 1st, 2004. That's an oldie but a goodie.
Those are
Small.
really lovely.
But I keep them in these 3 ring binders so that they're out of the light and that they're nice and flat and that they're nice and dry. If I do frame them, I make sure that they're under UV glass. Very important, because even, lights that you have inside your house or office or wherever will fade, just like they fade photographs over time. UV glass is important. Keeps out 99.9% of the UV rays. You still don't want to put it in direct sunlight, but that should keep it well protected. Also, when you frame things using archival materials, they're gonna mount it to a board, and there's acid-free tape, acid-free double-sided tape, and acid-free adhesive that keeps it in place, that won't ruin, won't eat away at the actual artwork, front or back.
And is certainly worth it. It's worth going that extra step. If you've created a wonderful work that's unique and important to you with memories and messages, it's certainly worth the extra to get the acid-free.
Absolutely. Imagine taking your photos you've saved for 50 years.
Exactly.
And then ruining them that way.
Yes,
Yeah, and I
yes,
mean,
for
the amount of
sure.
effort that goes into making art is not to be understated. Look at this one on my door. Oh, you know what? I'll show you this. Sometimes I print my originals on canvas. I scan them or digitize them. But like this one is my map of the United States.
Wow.
This took me like hundreds of hours to create. This is the actual size of it, but this is a print on canvas. Something like this is the kind of piece that I dream could be worthy of being in a major museum one day, with every single piece cut off of an actual package and it all arranged geographically. And I got to choose what cities and how to depict the states and the cities and the other places on there, you know? You see Illinois in the middle there? The two L's from Nilla Wafers. Can you see that?
I do.
And the IS is from Raisinets, I can tell. There's, unfortunately, LaSalle's not on there.
Well, that's okay. We know we're there anyway.
Chicago is, and the CH is from Chiclets.
I recognize it now.
Yeah, and the A in Chicago is from Thomas's English Muffins.
My
And the-
goodness.
And the GO is from Kellogg's. So,
Wonderful.
This is
I
an
see we
epic-
have some, I
Yeah.
see we have some comments here. Michael,
Sorry, just putting that back.
that's okay. That is just marvelous. Colleen says that she's trying this technique as you're talking. And she says, what cool art you do. Thank you.
Oh,
And then Laura says, very Jasper Johns meets Warhol.
you mean like the American flags? For sure. You know what I've done is I've taken these postcards of Jasper Johns flags and cut them all up and made a new flag using Jasper Johns' work, because you know that's one of his iconic things. Oh, I was definitely inspired by his map because I loved his map, and I said to myself, you know, well, the idea kind of came to me because I was looking at a map, and I always wanted to do a map of the USA, and it might have been because of the Jasper Johns map. But first I was thinking, well, maybe I'll cut the shapes of the states out of products that were made there. But not every iconic product, I don't think every state has something like that. And I don't really do that either. I'd have to trace it out and cut around it. But then I realized looking at the map that all the places, you know, are spelled out. And like there's Boston, there's New York, there's Philadelphia, Washington. And it's just like, oh, I could just, in my own style, I could spell out the words using the different letters from packages, because I had been doing stuff like that. You know, I don't know if any of you, well, my Illinois friends would appreciate this for sure. This is one of my favorite creations ever, is the Gettysburg Address. This took me 5 months to make.
That was a
And-
favorite of mine, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah, and
sending me a copy.
the idea of, you know, filling in the entire collage with words, you know, an entire text-based artwork like this. And, you know, spelling and also combining this everyday consumer brand imagery with such an important and serious thing as the Gettysburg Address. Really, I love that idea. And so when I started doing stuff like this, it came to me that I could do my own map in my own way, spelling out the places. And so that's how I ended up making that. But it was definitely inspired by Jasper Johns, you know, the idea of a artistically rendered map. You know, he uses stencils and he only spelled out a few things, you know, across the map, but it's a beautiful thing. Oh, when I use commercial products that I would guess would be trademarked and copyrighted, are you concerned about selling someone else's graphic art? I don't think I'm selling anybody else's graphic art. I'm using it in my work, I guess. But I mean, I'm not trying to sell cereal or cookies. I'm just, I haven't had any problem. I mean, I've been doing my first cereal box collage I made in 1996. So it's been 27 years and 26 years, 26. And I haven't had a problem with it yet. Maybe I'm not successful enough yet. Although I did my program in Battle Creek, Michigan a couple of years ago, and I stopped by the headquarters of Kellogg's and I was wearing my t-shirt that had my Frosted Flakes box on it. And I dropped off posters with my Frosted Flakes box collage. And there was an article in their local newspaper about artists running workshops at their local libraries. And I walked into their headquarters and I asked for the CEO, and they told me he wasn't available to meet right then. They said he was out of the country. But, I was standing there kind of like with my Frosted Flakes t-shirt, and nobody seemed to notice. I was like amazed that nobody even noticed. And then I left a package with the t-shirt and the posters, and I had a greeting card with it on there, and it was printed in their local paper with an article about my local library program. And a few weeks later, I got a lovely note from his executive secretary thanking me for the stuff, telling me they loved it, telling me, unfortunately, they don't see any opportunities for collaboration at the moment, but good luck. And I just thought, wow, if they didn't have a problem with it, I think that, any company can sue you if they want. And I think since my work is very positive and really celebratory, maybe if I was spelling out hate messages or something, somebody would have a problem with it, but I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with their letter appearing amongst several thousand letters on the Gettysburg Address used to help people appreciate, how meaningful and important and beautiful that speech is. But I don't know, I don't think, supposedly there's two main things regarding this copyright thing. One of them is, are you causing confusion in the marketplace? Like, is somebody going to be buying my Frosted Flakes instead of Kellogg's Frosted Flakes? And I'm not using it for that purpose. I'm using it clearly as an art piece. And the other part of it is, what percentage of the overall image is the copyrighted image you're talking about? So, like, for example, here on this Arlington Public Library, you might say, oh, here's Bam Bam from the Cocoa Pebbles box, but it's one of like a couple of hundred pieces on here. I don't know, this L from Lucky Charms, it's not causing confusion in the marketplace. It's a small percentage of the overall image. So, but again, anybody in America and in a lot of places, anybody could sue anybody if they want to. I don't know if they would win, but I probably would have to defend myself. So I'm hoping that won't happen.
Well, I'm not a copyright attorney, so I
Yeah.
don't have a legal opinion, but I would say, even with the Tony the Tiger image and that collage where it is predominant, I would think that it is, since you are not selling a competitive Frosted Flake, I would think that it is honoring an iconic brand, and probably should be flattering as opposed to competitive. But again, I'm not a
Yeah, no,
copyright
and that's what it is. Clearly. It's not that I'm telling people they should go out and eat Frosted Flakes, but I am saying, you know what? This is an icon of our culture, of our consumer brand culture, of our world.
Mhm,
And I
very
think it's
much.
beautiful. I'm not going to go out saying that I think it's the healthiest thing you can eat, but I also don't think having a bowl of Frosted Flakes is the worst thing in the world either, But I think it is delicious. And it's America. It's our world. Like I said, even if you don't eat it. To me, what's interesting about this, Donna, is that I feel the same way about the Gettysburg Address as I do a box of Frosted Flakes. It's something that if you've grown up in America and gone to school in America, you've heard of the Gettysburg Address. You've heard 7 years ago. You might not know anything about Lincoln or the Civil War or the Battle of Gettysburg or any of that, but you've heard of it. It would be hard to get through school, I hope, without having heard of the Gettysburg Address. And the same thing with Frosted Flakes. You could never have eaten it or don't like it. You prefer Fruity Pebbles, you prefer granola, you don't like cereal, but you can't get around having seen it and knowing what it is. because it's part of our world, you know? And that's
I-
interesting. That's an
It is interesting, and I think it's um, a good way to sum up our culture, and I like that. I like the fact that this is such a culturally aware kind of story. It really is, and the art complements who we are, and it does it as a culture, and it does it, aspects of our culture, since we're all very different anyway. But then it becomes personal, like the Grateful Dead concert, and like the pictures of my friend living in Florida now. So yeah, I'm very taken with this. My head is just spinning with all the ideas. I'm gonna let everyone have, the high sign here that we're almost about to close. Do we have any other questions from Michael tonight? And remember that if you have additional questions, just send them to us at the library, and we will make sure that we pass them on to him. And we will definitely put up the information so that you will be able to find him on his Midwest tour, or in other virtual programs that he might be having. Okay.
I wanted to say
well,
one more thing,
Sure.
that I feel like if I know what a Frosted Flakes box is and you know what a Frosted Flakes box is, that's something that we share. And that's one more reason that we realize that we're connected. If I showed you something that you had no idea what it was and I knew what it was, that would not be a connection. And so these everyday objects and images, and overall subjects, the Gettysburg Address, things like Shakespeare speeches and stuff, that if we've heard of it. Let's say you're into Hamlet and I'm into Hamlet. That's a common thing we share. And I think the more we realize that we share things in common with each other, the better it is. The more we can realize that we're a lot alike and that we should be friends.
Very well said, Michael. Very well said. And probably a good place to conclude. I don't see anything else in the chat. I want to thank our audience for attending tonight. We appreciate all of you taking time out from your evening to join in. And I very much enjoyed this program. As I just said, I can't wait to try to put some of these ideas into works. I hope all of you too have enjoyed the workshop and are inspired and will continue to explore this art form. Thank you, Michael. Fascinating. I'll turn it over to you for closing comments.
Well, first, this Grateful Dead postcard, guess who I'm mailing it to?
I can't wait.
And secondly, yes, thank you everybody for joining. It was very, very nice. I appreciate being invited to do this, and I do hope that we could, figure out a way to come in person one day, and maybe I'll meet some of you. And feel free to contact me. My website has a way that you could send messages. I put on the chat my website and also my Pinterest, where I have over 5,000 examples of artworks I've created over the last 30 years. So if you really want to in-depth look at what I've made, that's a good starting place. And on my regular website is also links to other things, some videos that interviews and stuff that I've done, and some other fun stuff if you want to learn more. But I'd also love to know what you create, and certainly anything you create, send it to Donna at the library. Take a picture and send it to her so she could see what cool creative things were made, during this workshop or as a result of it. And everybody just take care, and I'll see you around. Maybe this summer at one of those stops. And if so, please come up to me and tell me that we did this virtual thing together, because you'll be my very special guest. And
thank you, Michael. And if people do send us photos of their artwork, we will make sure that we link to you, and we will post them with permission on our Facebook page. So we would love to have that kind of participation. So tonight, to our audience, please complete the short pop-up survey that will appear when we close our Zoom connection. It's the same one that we always send, but we value your input and we love hearing from you. And again, thank you to everyone. Thank you, Michael. And for that, we'll say good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night, friends.